again and welcome to Keys to Literacy. I am Jessica Henry. Welcome again to my next video. It's a pleasure to have you. So, in our last video, which was my first video, we mentioned some reading behaviors that I have observed in the classroom over the 20 years plus that I have been an educator. And for those who are joining me for the first time, I am a literacy specialist. That's my passion. But I've also taught English language and English literature at almost every age. I've had experiences in the regular, what we call brick and mortar classroom or the traditional classroom. I have had experiences teaching online. I've taught English as second language, ESL, to international students. In the last video, I mentioned that I do have a blog with the same name, Keys to Literacy. The blog is up and running, and a link, a free ebook. Actually, yes, I'm pleased to give away my free ebook for common reading behaviors and the one that fuels lifelong learning. It's something like that, right? So the link is in the bio. It's free. Just sign up, complete the form, sign up, and it's yours. So it's what I'm going to be talking about today, and it's also what I talked about in the last video, but it goes through more information. There's also, I broke it down by grade level. As a literacy specialist, I am aware, very, very aware, that we're diverse in our learning abilities. We learn differently. It's just a fact. And so I am aware of that we have different learners. We have students with different learning styles, interests. And so that's one of the things I want parents, caregivers to realize, that not one thing fits all. And that's why I have a problem in the traditional classroom, because we are just using one band-aid to fix the problem. And it cannot be, because we're diverse and we're different. And yes, I am aware that it's difficult. I was in the classroom for many years. I have taught in classrooms with 40 students, 50 students. I have taught when I only have 20, 15. I am aware, very aware. So if there's a topic or something that's, you want to highlight, you want me to highlight, and if I don't have the answer, I can get expertise on to share. We can have parents who are actually doing this themselves, with kids who are diverse, kids with special needs, and so forth. I am not a special need teacher per se, a special education teacher, but, I can be a resource for that. So leave your questions and I'll be happy to help the best way I can. All right. So last week's video, we talked about picture reading, two of the reading behaviors that our children demonstrate. Picture reading was one of them. And very briefly, we said, just as the name suggests, it's the child is reading pictures and not text. And even if text is there, they can pretend as if they're reading. Okay. We also talked about mimic reading. Memorize it is kind of similar to picture reading, but in this case, most of my students I have observed use it as a coping mechanism, where they are pretending or they're remembering a story, or they remember the story that they heard and they're reading it as if as if it's the actual story, and they are exhibiting almost all the skills. They're fluent, but they're just talking, but it's not the text. They're not decoding. And if you should ask them some questions, or if you ask them to summarize, you're going to find out that they're not really able to do it to the full capacity. So another reading behavior, and this one is a big one that I want to highlight today. I'm going to highlight two more today. The other one I want to highlight, this one is where, unfortunately, most of our students are functioning. Calling words. It's called calling words. And educators, sometimes class teachers, pass this, even parents pass this kind of behavior as reading. I don't know about your country, but in my state, Pennsylvania, our children are failing reading, their reading comprehension, they're failing badly. Okay, yes, I know there are other factors because of, technology and just so many variables, but most of our kids are. First, they're articulate, they're fluent, they're observing the pauses, they're observing the punctuation rules, their intonation is perfect. Put it this way, they're reading so fluently that they pass the fluency test. They can be used as a great candidate to give a speech or to give a presentation at school, at church, or wherever. I'm talking about those kind of readers. I have so many students that I've coached and that I've taught that are at this level. Great readers, but what they're actually doing, they are calling words. What does that look like? They're fluent. That's the best way I can put it. They're fluent readers. But if we should ask them some questions, they're not able to answer adequately. Based on the standards that are used, there are pretty much 3, for the most part, levels of comprehension. So one is actually the literal level, which, like it says, it's literal. It's a duh moment. It's there in black and white. The answer is there. It's literal. So we have those literal questions. I'll go deeper into that in other videos. I do have a ebook on that as well, where I deep dive into answering comprehension questions and so forth. So the second level is inferencing, where it takes more thought. So the literal level, which is the baseline, the DAW level, I call it the DAW, like duh, that's the answers right there. I call it the DAW level. Like, most people ace that. Most kids will ace that because you don't even have to think. You just depend on your memory. So what was the name of the boy, or so on, and boom, they can just tell you the name, or they can just look back at the passage and it's right there. That's why I call it the DAW level, the literal. It's literally there. Okay, so it's not much thinking. It's just not much critical skills that are engaged. And then above that, you have what you call the inferencing, which takes a little bit more thought. You have to maybe search the passage. You may have to tap into your world experiences. You may have to tap into information that was given, but the information is not stated explicitly. You may have to take a few hints from there and a few clues from there in the passage and come to a conclusion. As it says, inference. You're making inferences. You're making conclusions. And all these skills we have to teach our children independently. They have it. We just need to develop it. And the highest level above that is called critical level, where a lot of time this is where our children do poorly, like really, really bad. Because I have found that many times you're like, but miss, the answer is not in the text. They're right, it's not in the text, because the thing that I've will be exploring is answers are really only found 4 places when it comes to reading comprehension. Only 4 places. And we're going to there's actually an ebook on that I'm working on. Just 4 places. And if our students know where to find the answers, they'll be great readers. The 4th reading behavior is reading for understanding. We should be able to read for understanding. That is the highest level of reading. It encompasses all the literacy skills: thinking, analyzing, synthesizing information, deciding whether the author's view is an opinion or if it's a fact. They are connecting the author's view or whatever is presented to them with their worldview and while they're reading, they're asking questions, they are answering questions, they're using the W's, the why, the who, the when, the where, and sometimes the how. So they're using all of this simultaneously. They're not taking everything as face value. While you're reading, they're imagining, they're thinking, they're making connections to another book. They're making a connection to what's happening in the world. They're making connections. They're seeing it. They're imagining it. They're tasting it. They're using all their senses. All these skills, that's what they're doing while they're reading. And as they read and developing all of these skills, like I said, you have to teach these skills sometimes independently, and they'll come together. And so questioning is a great way. When we're reading, we can pause, we can ask them questions. So what do you think about that? Do you think this is really so? What does this suggest about this person? You know, things like that. You probe them for them to think, for them to analyze, for them to synthesize the information, because these are the skills that we're going to need in the real world. And so that's why these skills will make our learners lifelong learners and be great, productive citizens. And so while we have picture reading and memorization or mimicking, and we have calling words, where we want our students to be is to read for understanding. And that takes practice and training. So we want our children to read for understanding. Many of our kids are fluent readers, but if we should stop and ask them to summarize what they said, to recall, they are unable to do it. If we ask them comprehension questions, they are going to fail because they have not learned strategies to tap into the information. All of these skills are important to allow our students to become lifelong learners. And so, in a nutshell, that's the 3 reading behaviors. We need each of them in the stages of development, but it should be short-lived. Okay, so we don't want to be just fluent readers. We want to be fluent readers who are not just decoding words, but are understanding what we are reading. And there's so many ways we can get our children to understand what they're reading. And we're going to explore that on this channel. So again, thank you so much for coming to Keys to Literacy. My name is Jessica. The link below, you can jump on my blog and get some information and some free ebook as well. There's a link with a free ebook, the 4 common reading behaviors that children do or that readers do, and the one that fuels lifelong learning. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'll see you in the next one.